Oh, yeah, if anyone wants to speak, please sign in the chat.
Members of the public, that is not.
No.
Okay, so we're live now, and we'll see if anybody we get anybody in the attendance list.
Oh, wait, check this. I wonder if this works on my, does it work? No, it doesn't.
All right, I see our attendees are starting to populate.
Oh, yeah, if anyone wants to speak, please sign in the, oh, yeah, if anyone wants to speak, please sign in the chat.
Members of the public, that is not.
No.
Okay, so we're live now, and we'll see if anybody we get in the attendance list. Michelle, you have to mute the YouTube screen.
Yes, I know. Okay.
What is that feedback there? Okay, I think we're okay.
That was the YouTube.
Should we get started?
Yes, we
One
can.
more minute.
Yeah. Let's wait for 6:30. Okay, so welcome everyone to our June meeting. So we have 3 applications today to go through and some discussion. And so let's start with 206 West 79th Street.
Hi, how are you? Karen from Michael Kelly's office. I'm representing Sal 79 Associates, Inc. in a new liquor license application. Sal Coppola has owned and operated Coppola's at this location since 1991. And it was under Coppola's of New York City, Inc. They had to change their corporate name to Sal 79 Associates, Inc., which is what they're operating as now. And there's not going to be any change to the method of operation whatsoever. And Sal is the only owner.
Hello, folks. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so anybody have any questions?
Anybody to discuss? Anybody have any questions or anyone from the public?
Anybody from the public, if you wish to speak, you can raise your Zoom hand, and we will call on you. Okay, community board members, do you have any questions or comments?
The comments, we're just grateful that Coppola
Okay,
is with us.
Doc, what is
Yeah,
that?
thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say you've been such a long-standing member of this community, and you've got great food and service, and we're glad you're still here. Very, very, very
Thank
grateful.
you. I really appreciate that. We've worked tremendously, crazy hours just to stay open during this time, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
It's mutual. So shall we call the vote?
Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Committee members first. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with Linda. That's 6. That's 6000 committee members and non-committee members now. Those in favor, raise your hands. So I see. Let's see.
I take the hands down.
Yeah, let's take the hands down.
Well, we didn't say no or abstentions on the committee.
That's because of the committee members voted yes.
And Paul.
Okay, so non-committee members now. Raise your hand if you are in favor. So I see Ken is voting yes. Miranda, Daniela, and Benjamin. Daniela's voting yes. Sima is voting yes.
Can we vote?
Yeah, we're voting.
All in favor? Benjamin, you can vote. It's a
I can
non-committee.
vote. I didn't know if I was part of this committee yet and I was allowed to vote.
Well, we do first the committee members, then we take the vote of the non-committee members.
And we hope you will be a member of this committee.
Yeah. No, this one is definitely one I'm certainly interested in. So I guess I'll vote.
Okay,
So vote as a non-committee member, and then the next month, you'll vote as a committee member.
Got it.
Okay, and then
we have Benjamin, we have Ken, Daniela, Sima. That's 4.
You have raised hand, Roberta.
Roberta has physical hands, so that's 5. Okay, anybody against? Any, Miranda, did you vote? Abstaining? Or so I have didn't get a vote from Miranda. I have 5000 right now.
Okay, 5000. Okay, did Robert SBA vote?
I didn't see Robert yet.
He's here.
Yeah, I'm here listening. I raised my hand.
So that's 6.
Okay, so that's 6.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
I
Have a good
appreciate it.
evening.
Listen, have a great evening, guys. Thank you very much. Stay safe, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Paul, you want to vote on this one?
Did Paul not vote?
I didn't see Paul ahead of time.
He's here.
Paul, you want to say yes, no? You have to mute
Hi, Paul.
yourself if you want to speak. Okay. Okay, so let's go to the next applicant. This will be 464 Amsterdam Avenue, Loki Hospitality. And we have Donna Bernstein.
Yes, hi, Donald Bernstein. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Donald.
Hi, Linda. This is space at 464 Amsterdam between 82nd and 83rd. I believe it was Mokum for a few years. It just closed, unfortunately, last year, but an opportunity for my client, and I see Manuel is here. Manuel and his partner, Ciro, who owns an identical restaurant for past few years down in West Houston, and Manuel has worked in Italy at restaurants for about a decade, are going to open up a pizzeria and trattoria at this location. They'll specialize in pastas and pizzas. The menu looks delicious.
It looks great.
The hours are noon till 1 a.m., although he probably won't, he doesn't necessarily think he'll always be open till 1 a.m., but just to be sure, we're asking for a 1 a.m. close on the license. Music is recorded only. Cellar is back of house, storage in the kitchen. Upstairs, he's got 17 tables and 34 seats and 1 bar and 7 stools. And that's it. I wish I was back living on the Upper West Side to go there. And Manuel, I think Manuel would like to say hi to all of you and introduce himself. So Manuel, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Manuel Coccaro. Donald already did a great job by describing what we're doing. I'll be very brief. I just want to say that, of course, my name is Manuel. My partner, Ciro, is also from Naples, both from Italy, born and raised. My family owns 3 restaurants on the Amalfi Coast. I've been working there my whole life, and I also have 10 years of experience in fine dining in New York. Ciro is the pizza chef, and he won 3 times in a row Best Pizzeria in New York City on the Gambero Rosso. Gambero Rosso is basically an Italian food and wine magazine and publishing group. It's the for us in Italy is the best, and they do give votes to all Italian restaurants around the world. Just want to say that we hope we can be part of this great community, that we can bring a lot of positive energy. I'm sure that you already have some over there. We just want to share this with you and bring you some, hopefully some good food and make it a second home for you all. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. This is exciting.
Thank you so much.
Anyone has any questions? Do you have a question? Would you like to speak? Raise your hand.
Committee members? Public?
Okay. So let's call a vote. Committee members or those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, so I see
And for some reason, I'm putting my hand up.
5 electronic hands, and then Linda is 6.
Yeah.
I am 7. So committee membership 7000. Let me lower everybody's hands. So non-committee members now, raise your hand if you are voting in favor. I see Ken, Roberta, Daniela. Robert is 4. I saw Miranda earlier, that's 5. So if you're, that's 5 in favor, non-committee members. Non-committee members that are voting no. Okay, abstaining.
Gotta lower everybody's hand.
Benjamin, was that a yes vote or an abstention?
Yes vote.
Yes vote, okay. So that was 6.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, that was 6 yes, no negatives, any abstention?
Okay.
Rich, are you voting?
Rich Robbins, are you voting?
Or Seema, are you voting also?
Yes, you put yes.
Seema is yes, okay. So that's 7 in favor, 7000 for non-committee members.
So the vote, okay, so it's 7000 committee members and 7000 non-committee members.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
So much, everyone.
Okay.
Okay, so now,
If you want, you can make it 8 for non-committee. I'm just tied up with other stuff, but
Okay, so
I'm in favor.
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rich.
Okay, so now the next application is 774 Amsterdam Avenue, JPDB Hospitality. Mr. Jacob Osne.
Hey, how's everyone? We're looking to expand to the building next door. It's the same landlord. Space we had, has been perfect for our first year up there, and a tough year it's been. But we luckily have survived this year and have seen more demand than we expected. I've been talking with our landlord about taking over the space that allegedly has been vacant for about 5 years. And we want to knock down a portion of the wall in between, get rid of the bar in the existing area, and just move it next door.
Anybody has any questions?
So how many more seats, how many seats do you have and how many more seats will you have?
Pre-COVID, the seating in the existing place was 47 seats, including bar seating. Bar seating was 6 seats. So 41 seats at tables previously.
Mm-hmm.
In the new layout, we would have about 10 seats at the bar as it currently lays out with the architect, and an additional 40 seats inside. So 80 seats at tables, 10 seats at the bar, 90 in total.
That's great.
Thank you. I'm going to recognize Lisa Oyman.
Hi, I wanted to know if you have any outdoor dining.
Right now we do. I'm not sure if we're going to continue with that once, the Open Streets program is going to end.
It's going to be permanent, so I don't think that'll be ending. Maybe Andrew could talk more to that. But what do you think? What would you attribute your surprising success to?
The outdoor right now. When we first opened, it was the fall into the winter. It's amazing how many people, once we put the seating outside, were like, we didn't know this was a restaurant. And we opened October 2019. December 2019, the building had a gas leak and we were closed for the entire month. And then we were welcomed with COVID and were shut down for another 2 months. So I guess once, we reopened with the takeout and then the outdoor dining, people still thought of us as new. And then as people continue to walk around the neighborhood, even now we're getting like, oh my God, I've been wanting to try you guys. You're so new. And when we tell them, we've actually been here for 16 months, they're a little shocked.
Thanks.
Lisa, can you provide your building address for the minutes?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Christian.
Your building address.
Sure, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. Okay, Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'll just say, Jake, that the restaurant, the outdoor dining program is going to become permanent. So the requirements may be a little bit different than the current requirements with the structure and everything. So that's something to consider, but you will be under a program permitted to use the sidewalk space and the roadway space subject to, specific limitations like you are now. But not only the restaurant is great, and it's where my daughter and I go on date night a lot, but it's been really nice, the activity on the block. A lot of times walking by, having people out, having lights on the block. I just think it's really nice on Amsterdam over there to have it. So, and it kind of continues down the road from down the block from, Guacamole and everything. So, and it's cool. It's a cool, unique place. And I feel like you bring a really good, cool, eclectic, crowd in as well. So it's nice to see.
I think one of the great things about the outdoor dining also is that when we have this it keeps our streets safer and livelier, and it's a great boon to the community.
I agree.
I've noticed even, as some things have changed in the neighborhood since I've opened, my employees feel safer locking up in the past couple months versus when we first opened.
I'd like to say something quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Great. Peter Arnson with the Columbus Amsterdam Bid. Jake and Moonrise have done a great job of enlivening that whole block. We have 4 restaurants along there, and all of them bring out tables, and it's just made that whole block just feel really good. Right now, the open streets is only open on Sundays because of traffic problems south of 96th Street and on the cross street 97th. But even so, they are making it work, and just it's been great to have them there. So just wanted to put in a positive word and support their application. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. Okay,
So-
anybody else?
So we
Go ahead,
call,
Linda.
call the vote?
Wait, yeah, let's call the vote. Yeah.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Oh, here, I just found my hand.
Committee members only first, please.
Miranda, you've got to bring your hand down.
Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and with me 7. So committee member, that's 7000. Let me know with those hands.
Wait, did Irena vote?
Is Irana here? Irana's not here.
Yeah, she just came.
You just came?
Yeah.
Irana, did you vote?
I'm still taking minutes though. Irena, did you vote?
I don't think the voting is finished.
Well, I didn't see you, so everybody, all the other members voted yes. So that's 7 in favor. Did you voted no or abstention?
Have you asked for abstentions yet?
No.
I'm asking now. Okay, so that's the vote is 7010 committee members.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't think I was going to be here. I thought I had a commitment, but it was canceled. So Linda, thanks for taking the notes. I'll take them next week.
Yeah, it's nice to co-chair a committee and take the minutes. Okay.
Okay, so now, non-committee members in favor, raise your hand. Okay, so I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 in favor. Let me lower those hands. Okay, anybody against? Does nobody against? Anybody abstaining? I don't see any abstentions. So anybody that's not eligible to vote, I don't imagine so. So that vote is 7000, non-committee members. Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone.
You're welcome.
And thanks for hanging in there, and good luck, and we'll see you soon. And
Thank you. Yes, hopefully I see everyone soon.
You got it.
Okay, so that brings us to our Roberta. You want us to say something about the DNS?
Roberta?
She's trying to mute herself. There you go.
And I'm here, sorry.
Yeah, so the DNS, basically you don't have, BCI doesn't have much on it, but look at what you did last year and it's up on the website. And you may want to make some changes because of the pandemic and now that the streets are open. So I think it should be updated for the pandemic. I don't think you usually have any budget items, but you might this year. So if you're going to have a budget item, you want to vote on it at your July meeting. And you want to put that on your agenda before the July meeting so that there can be a formal hearing on the July meeting.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. We will pass, before the July meeting, we will pass something around to all the members.
Only if you have a budget item. The DNS doesn't have to get.
I understand, yes.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rebecca. Linda, you can put that on the new business, okay? So that comes now to our last item on the agenda. That's a discussion with food delivery workers, and we had invited some other of the food delivery services who didn't respond. We have Idalina Hidalgo.
Right. Hernandez, she's here, and that would be great to hear from her. And it's
this is a further discussion that started last month in having to do mostly with the access to bathrooms for delivery personnel.
And is Lilian here?
So Lillian is not here. I don't see her yet.
Okay.
Idalina, would you like to start talking about?
Good afternoon, everybody. My colleagues are running a little bit behind, and then two workers are joining in. We're just doing the logistic of getting them stop working and then jump on the phone with you guys. And I think one of them is here. Actually.
Okay, then we should, as soon as you finish, we should hear from him so he can get his work done and make lots of money.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So Idalina, why don't you start telling us about your organization a little bit first?
Sure. So our organization is called Los Deliveristas. There is an initiative out of Workers' Justice Project, which is an organization that represents kind of like different industry, day laborers, domestic workers, and then this group of people. They're based in Brooklyn, but they're kind of like across the 5 boroughs. In the last year, during the pandemic, Workers' Justice have emphasized their efforts to try to help organize workers, delivery workers that work for the apps. And there are numerous apps in New York City and growing every day. So during these efforts, part of the initiative was to start trying to organize and then use organizing as a way to address to some of the concerns. So just to give you a background, there's an estimate in New York City there are between 50,000 to 70,000 delivery workers working for multiple apps, right? At the same time, we have delivery workers that a lot of people think that is about food because in the pandemic actually focus on that particular item. But these delivery workers deliver medications from pharmacies. It also starting to deliver alcohol, groceries, and other essential things that people in New York City need, right? And that is something that we kind of like, we have seen how this industry is keep growing and growing. From our part, we are, as I said, and Andrew is here. Thank you. Hi, Andrew. I mentioned to Andrew and to Lisa and to Linda that we see Upper West Siders and the restaurants are as partners. We want to work together in order to address some of the issues that you guys have raised. And yesterday we did a press conference with some of the elected officials to actually try to move forward some of the city bills in order to start to implement a level playing field across the board about how these apps kind of like can operate in New York City. In kind of like in a summary, there's 6 issues, right, that for these delivery workers are confronting. First one is safety issues. There's a lot of issues about assault and delivery and e-bikes theft across the city. The second issue is the access to restrooms from the restaurants. Another issue is about transparency in terms when it comes to tips, right? You as a customer will give a tip, but there is sometimes situations that workers will not receive the tips. And it's because either the app store doesn't disclose it, or there is not a very clear track where that app's kind of like how that tip operates. Another issue is about minimum pay. There's not a minimum pay for these workers in this industry. Some workers will work through 12 hours and easily will get paid $50. They get paid two ways on their tips, and there is a fee that the delivery company will pay each worker. And it can go from 25 cents and it can go to $5 to $6, right? It depends on how the algorithm or the kind of like apps see that fluctuating. So it's never a guarantee that you're gonna walk away with a certain amount of money. So some days can be good. If there's rain or there is really hot, our workers are actually out there a lot, because I know a lot of the customers don't wanna get out in the rain to get food, right? Or to get their groceries or to get their medications. If there is a hot day, obviously sometimes it's good because you guys don't kind of like customers don't want to go outside. So that's something that it's good. Where do they work? They have like 3 big shifts. We have people that work in the morning. Like the rush is from like 7 o'clock to 10. They take a break, right? They kind of like find spaces in some of your neighborhoods to take a rest. They go back, jump again on the bike, probably by 11 to 2, what is the lunch rush hour. Just take a little bit of break around in the neighborhood, right? They don't go home. Some of these workers live in Queens and Brooklyn and other parts of the areas. And then the night is basically starts at 7 and it finishes at midnight. So you're gonna see a lot of the deliveries kind of like run through those hours, right? And we're glad to do it, right? Because if they're doing delivery, that means that the restaurants in the neighborhood are doing good. And that's actually what some of the things that we definitely want to move forward. Another issue that they have is the issue about the distances, right? The algorithm will make a distance based on a mathematical formula. But we know as New Yorkers, right, that going from, for example, the Upper West Side to kind of like the Bronx can take you a couple of hours, especially in doing the bikes. There's not limit right now for the app. Sometimes we have workers that have go from Upper West Side to Brooklyn to deliver a coffee and a bagel. Right? And the problem is that is that the workers don't have a mechanism to say no to that delivery because you get penalized.
I'm just want to ask you a question about that. Don't most restaurants say we only deliver from here to here? They usually do, but that's not applicable if for the workers who are using the apps?
Sometimes some of the apps don't. The restaurant can determine an area, but if there is also the app is going to send them other orders from other restaurants that are not determining their area, so they can easily go out to other places. What happened is that the acceptance ratings of how the worker is accredited or evaluated goes down immediately if the person don't take that order or just let it pass, right? And that is a big problem because that means that they're going to lose opportunity to be on the prime time or actually to do more deliveries. And that is a big issue. Right now, there's no regulation. Sometimes some of this work can get deactivated from the apps. There's no recourse, right? You just have to be on customer service on the line and trying to persuade the person to get you there. And that's one of the issues. So some of the legislation that they're trying to put forward in order to establish a level playing field on how these apps are going to start operating in New York City. And that's what actually the press conference that we had yesterday that was all about. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Wait. Before we, hold on a second, Robert. Before we go to questions, I would like to hear from, Idan, you said you have a caller here. What's his name?
You have a caller. Let's hear from the service worker. And then what we're going to do is the questions and answers, because we've got a large crowd and it looks like it's going to be a limited evening after the presentation from the deliveristas would be, we'll take 2 minutes for everyone else. You'll have 2 minutes to ask your questions and respond. So, but let's hear from the gentleman who is taking time out of making his living to talk to us tonight.
Who would that be?
I think it's Daniela Alvarado. Can you try that?
Daniela is one of our members. No.
So he's not here.
Let me tell you the people that are on the attendee. We have a Carlos Garcia.
Yes, Carlos Garcia, yes.
Okay. Yeah, we have two Carlos Garcias. I guess that's one Carlos and one somebody else.
Probably they forward the link to another person.
There is a Juan Reynoso.
Yeah, Juan Reynos is another worker. That would be the two workers, Carlos Garcia and Juan Reynos.
Okay,
So
so
let's hear from these gentlemen first. Thank you.
yeah. Okay,
Thank
so Carlos and Juan have been allowed to speak. You have to unmute yourself so you can talk to us.
Carlos, ¿estás aquí?
How about Juan Reynoso? Juan, can you unmute yourself?
Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Juan. Bueno, ¿me escucho?
Sí, sí. Continúe.
Bueno, hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Carlos García.
Mucho gusto.
Mire, la verdad, yo trabajo en el Upper West Side, ¿verdad? Yo reparto comida desde hace 4 años en el Upper West Side, ajá. Y pues la verdad, el trabajo es bastante riesgoso de ser delibrista, ¿verdad? De ser un repartidor de comida.
Carlos,
disculpe.
¿me puedes dar un momento para traducirle? Porque hay personas aquí que no entienden español.
Okay, perfecto.
So I asked him to slow it a little bit down so I can translate, because I explained there's people that do not understand Spanish. So my name is Carlos Garcia. I am a delivery worker in the Upper West Side. I've been doing this job for the last 4 years, and it's actually a very hard work. Carlos, continúa.
You have to mute yourself again, Carlos.
Continúa, por favor.
Tienes que quitar el mute.
Carlos, tienes que quitar el mute para poder seguir hablando.
Carlos, you're muted. Perfecto. Número silenciado.
Ok, perfecto. Disculpen. Lo que pasa es que no le entiendo muy bien a esto. Vuelvo a repetir. Yo la verdad he trabajado ya durante 4 años en este lugar. La verdad me ha pasado cada cosa. He vivido experiencias malas en la carretera. Me han robado mi bicicleta a mano armada, la verdad. Sinceramente, he tenido problemas en el tránsito de los carros. Bueno,
Carlos, no te quites el mute, quédate ahí, déjame yo traducirte y continúa, ¿está bien? Espera un momentito. I have been working in the Upper West Side for 4 years. I have gone through every experience I can think of. I was the victim of e-bike robbery using on a gun. So I lost my bicycle and my tool of work. And then I have a lot of issues in terms of issues with cars and to drive around in the area because there's a high transit of cars kind of like going back and forth. Carlos, continúa.
Ok, otra de las cosas, mire, nosotros nos dedicamos a ser un poco rápidos, ¿verdad? En las órdenes, por la razón de que nuestras aplicaciones que nos van dando, tenemos que ser rápidos, ya sea que por la comida se enfría o ya sea que también que por los clientes, ¿no? Los clientes o puede ser también el restaurante, que si no te baja tu puntuación y todo eso, entonces uno tiene que andar a veces a las carreras en el trabajo, ¿no? Pero pues es cuestión de, pues más que nada de entendimiento, ¿verdad?
He wanted to say that sometimes, as you know, they go fast in the neighborhood. The reason is that a few things is like if you don't turn in the food on time based on the app, you can get kind of like points. You get kind of like degraded in terms of your average. Sometimes the issue, for example, that the food get cold and the client kind of like it's a little bit frustrated what the food is cold, but sometimes the restaurant takes a little bit longer to actually get the order. But part of this process of what he's saying is like we have to figure out. They want to at least you guys to know their situation and understanding, and how we can get into an understanding what's going on.
But very important. What we also here, we want to find out about their access to restrooms, their experience with the restaurants on the Upper West Side. That's very important to us. I know it's a very difficult job, especially things like that tonight.
Carlos, la señora Alexander te quería preguntar tu experiencia como deliverista en la parte del uso de los baños en el área.
Ok, pues mire, yo alrededor de esta pandemia, ¿verdad? La verdad tenemos bastantes problemas porque pues aunque a pesar de que uno es como cliente o va uno a recoger la comida en ese lugar, no quieren darnos el permiso de poder pasar al baño. La verdad, somos sufridores de esa parte, la verdad.
Like we have the situation in the Upper West Side during the pandemic, and sometimes their issue is that if they need to use the restroom, there's some restaurants that will not allow them to use the restroom. Even that they say, listen, I'm a customer or even a partner as I'm taking the food, their food to their clients. But that has been a situation that he has encountered.
Okay. Qué terrible me parece.
Okay, Carlos, ¿quieres decir algo más o ya terminó?
Creo que I think we lost him.
Okay.
Quizás Juan Reynoso.
Sí, Juan Reynoso está en la llamada.
Okay, Juan, you can unmute yourself. Would you like to speak?
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess Juan may be having also difficulties getting unmuted.
I think it's difficult tonight. A lot of us had a hard time getting on.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna move on a moment. Before we go to general questions, I want to hear from Peter Armstrong. He has a perspective based on the Business Improvement District. Peter, go ahead.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can, Peter.
Hi. I wanted to talk about the recent handling of one of the restaurants in our neighborhood that was reported as not allowing bathroom use. And a couple of things that I'd like to point out, that this is a very individual situation that has a lot of context. That corner has been a contested corner amongst drug gangs for years. That's resulted in violence, shootings, and people are concerned. And it's something that there's a long history with drug use, and the bathrooms are a place where not only drug use, but drug sales have taken place, and that they need to be controlled by the restaurants. And this is something that the restaurants would be foolish to give up and allow automatic access. The restaurant that was referred to also has an individual situation where undercover inspectors came in and asked to use the bathroom, and then that resulted, because they were walked in and may have removed masks or not had masks, that resulted in a multi-$1,000 fine, when at a time when that wasn't supposed to be happening. It was supposed to be advisory or a warning type of situation, but instead they faced weeks, if not months, of hearings and not being sure whether that fine was going to be implemented. I believe it was finally implemented, though at a lower rate. So those are some of the concerns that I have about also that this individual restaurant was named in public, and that is a concern because, as I said, these are, I mean, they allow bathroom use. That's part of the reason they got into trouble with the SLA. But they also have to be conscious of the surroundings and of their individual circumstances at the restaurant in terms of how many customers they have and whether there's a history of a problem with any individuals. So that's, in general, my understanding is that most of the bathrooms are available to drivers, delivery people. I can't guarantee that, but that's been the impression that I've gotten from the restaurants that I have spoken to. So if people have any individual questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Okay, Peter, I'm gonna make this very fast. In this restaurant, we won't ask you to have the name of it, but in the case of this restaurant, is it a restaurant that uses the apps? Does it have delivery services? Why wouldn't they be able to discern the difference between a bike delivery person and somebody coming off the street who's a drug dealer?
Sure. I believe that they do use the apps. They do not have their own delivery service as far as I know. So that should be possible. I'm not sure of what the exact situation might have been, but I do know that they do not, across the board, allow for free use of the bathroom because of some of the problems in the neighborhood. Oh, and I see that there's a question in the, or a suggestion that I introduce myself. So my name is Peter Arnson. I'm with the Columbus Amsterdam bid, which operates between 96th Street and 110th Street on Amsterdam and Columbus Avenues.
Okay. Also, now, like Andrew, your capacity with the Hospitality Alliance, do you have anything to add to the discussion?
I'm sorry, Christian, was that directed at me?
No, Andrew.
Yeah, so obviously, just in full disclosure, you know, my organization, the Hospitality Alliance, testified at the City Council hearing yesterday. We support the legislation. We think it's critically important. These workers have been essential before the pandemic, but I think we really saw how essential they are during the pandemic and will continue to be. So we're supportive of the legislation. There were two comments we made. One, we would like to see a warning or a cure period provided for any first-time violation. You know, as much as the city does outreach to inform businesses about new laws and regulations, they often don't get to people. There's all different barriers to getting this information. So if for some reason there was a first-time violation, the inspector would say, you violated the law, you need to correct it, but they wouldn't issue a fine for that first-time violation. And then the second part, and I don't know if it addresses Peter's point, but being able to have reasonable policies in place at the restaurant to ensure, you know, the orderly access to the toilet facilities. So depending on the restaurant, you may not have a huge waiting area. So maybe you would want to say one person can come in and use the restroom at a time, or they often have the large insulated bags to carry the food. If there's a secure place where the worker could place it, then walk through the restaurant so they're not walking through a small dining room with, you know, the big bags on. So just reasonable stuff like that. But, you know, we think it's really important. It gets to hopefully the heart of the issue. And yeah, so we were supported. So I supported from there, and I supported in a personal capacity, as we've, you know, discussed before.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move into, because this is going to be a long session, we're going to ask everybody to keep it to 2 minutes, your questions, your opinions, and I will be timing it. So Christian, you call on speakers.
Okay, Robert, you wanted to ask something?
Well, yeah, and this is quite an eye opener, and but I kind of suspected as much because I eat out a lot locally. I don't go too far; it's just convenient and quality. And but I hope the legislation. I wonder if Regio could open his comments up a little bit. I hope the legislation contains. Because some of these observations, some of these comments are really outrageous. Either a committee, some mechanism that would establish a uniform standard for any app that is used in the district. So for example, if there's an app that doesn't filter distance, and this is the point Linda was making, and I think is a very important point. If your favorite restaurant is on 72nd Street and you live in some part of the Bronx, that's just not reasonable to expect a delivery man to go up there. Not only may he not get a proper tip, but he can make 6 trips locally in that time. So there's got to be some kind of regulation. And the issue, of course, becomes enforcement. Let's say you write it, and the regulatory component of the legislation is the enforcement piece. So how do you do that? But there's got to be something, because this is, and not to be too loose about this term, but this is sheer abuse of workers. This is absolutely outrageous. And it is true that the restaurants will restrict the traveling delivery man from using the bathroom, and that's just cruel. That's just sheer cruelty. I mean, they're bringing our food to us, and we're comfortable. It's raining like hell outside, or snowing, or whatever. It's hot as hell outside, and we're comfortable at home, you know. And you cannot enforce the tipping thing, but this is the case where I would say that in the delivery order, that the price includes a tip. As you go to many restaurants, and the tip is included up front, okay? Which is traditionally in the origination of the tipping, that's the definition of tipping, to improve I forget what it is, but you pay your tip up front.
Okay, Robert, thank you very much.
Yeah, that's my comment, Linda.
Good comments. Thank you.
Okay, so now, Ken, you have a comment now?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to note that Ligia is here. I don't know whether.
I take a notice, yeah.
Okay. I guess Mr. Garcia is no longer with us. I just wanted, sorry, I didn't get the chance to thank him for taking time out of his busy day to share his experiences with us. And Hitaline, nice to see you. At the press conference, I was at that press conference also yesterday. I heard some delivery workers also say that they are allowed access to the bathrooms if they pay. We have a resolution before us that's been before us for a couple of months that urges restaurants on the Upper West Side to allow delivery workers bathroom access, but it doesn't say anything about whether they can charge or not. So would you think it's a good idea that we add something to the resolution saying that that's not what we mean, allowing them access if they can pay?
When we get to that, Kristen, we can discuss it with committee.
Right.
Well, I want to hit Hitalin's. I mean, she may have to leave. Can we get her response?
Okay, thank you, Ken. Okay.
So I think the legislation as we have right now, I think address the issue. I think if we start to put like additional I think it's gonna make it more complicated. And I think that's what we're looking for, because it's a set like playing field across the board, right? And I will say this, right? Yesterday at the press conference, TW members from Local 100, which represent MTA workers, right, were there, and they were like, I have walking into many restaurants with my MTA uniform, and I have never had an encounter of how your workers are doing. So it's giving that across the board, right? The same as yesterday, we did have police officers at the event, right? And police officer expressed, I have walked into a restaurant, even sometimes undercover, and they allow me to come in, right? It's just they're workers, right? And some of these workers, so you know, the workers that work on the Upper West Side, they work in their area, so they're known to the restaurants, they know to the people that they serve. There is a relationship. And that's what we kind of like want to work on. And I just want to add, Andrew, the issues that Andrew raised, we are in agreement with what he is suggesting. I think it's a reasonable policy. So we see people, customers and restaurants as partners. I just want to highlight that.
Thank you. Ligia's here. Christian, before we go to Richard, should we go to Lygia? Because I don't know how much longer she'll be able to stay.
Sure. Although Idali gave quite a comprehensive introduction earlier. Lydia, do you have anything specific that you might feel that hasn't been covered yet? You will have to mute yourself.
I just saw the sign where I just saw a message where she's ready to testify.
Yeah, this is Ligia. I don't have, I think Hildali said it all. We have actually 2 workers that are ready to testify. So if we can allow them to go in because they're actually working, it will be amazing.
Ligia, they already spoke.
Testify.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Oh, okay. Just I joined late, but nothing. I think, I appreciate having this conversation. I think the voices of workers are important as these spaces. And I appreciate for making sure workers have this space to keep on fighting for dignity, because that's what this fight is about, right? And as probably the worker said, workers are not looking to shame restaurants. On the contrary, they want to build solidarity because they clearly understand that this is a fight against the apps, and the apps are the ones who are profiting from the labor of workers, charging high fees to consumers and restaurants. And I think there is a unified fight here that we all need to get on the same side.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Okay, Richard.
Finished.
Hi, so thank you very much. I think this issue is the tip of the iceberg. As I've spoken at a number of meetings, I signed up for DoorDash. I'm mostly concerned about transportation, and I know there have been a huge number of complaints, and I just wanted to get a sense of the experience. And this past Sunday in 90-degree heat, I rode for an hour and a half and was able to do 3 deliveries and make $22.50. So when DoorDash was super busy, I was barely able to make minimum wage and experienced a whole number of problems that I don't have time to get into right now. The idea of allowing the delivery workers to use the bathroom is just a total no-brainer. We've got to do that. There are a lot of other issues that are contributing both to danger in our streets, both for the delivery riders and for other people on the street that need to be addressed. And ultimately, it's an economic issue. It's an issue with these third-party apps, which have a number of major flaws. And it's basically a matter of economics, where it's basically impossible to make not even a living wage, but minimum wage, or enough money to survive. And a lot more has to be done. But the idea of bathrooms, if they were workers, which they need to be, if they were actual employees, then OSHA requirements would require that mobile workers have a bathroom. But we need to make sure that they have bathrooms. We also need to make sure that that they're safe and that they're treated right in many other ways. But this is a total no-brainer. Thank you.
Thank you.
And actually, one last thought is I urge other people to sign up and ride. I know it sounds crazy, but in 2 hours, you can get an experience that's really worth having so you can understand what these people go through.
Thank you, Richard. Irana?
Thank you. Thank you, Hidaleen. How is it pronounced?
Hidaleen.
Did I say it properly? I have a hard name too, so I'm always particular about it. And thank you, Lygia, and thank you for inviting 2 of your colleagues to come to the meeting today. I really respect what they're going through. I think it's remarkable that they can even do this work under the conditions that you described. And I wonder if you could give us some advice. You laid out quite eloquently the challenges that both the riders face as well as pedestrians because of the business model and the need for speed in order for them not to be penalized, in order for them to get a fair tip and not to, to lose their privileges. And I wonder if you and Lygia, whether it's in this resolution or a future resolution from this committee, can give us some guidance about the language that we could use with these companies to control the speed in which the delivery people are forced, to use to deliver. I mean, because we respect the challenges they're facing, but there's also issues related to, the fact that some of them are not following traffic regulations, and it puts many of our neighbors at risk. And so to your point and Lygia's point, like, we want this to be a partnership. And it would be helpful if you could just guide us because we know that not all of the delivery people are breaking traffic regulations, but a fair number are, that it's of concern to us. So we would welcome any guidance from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On regarding that, one of the things we recognize the issues that you raised, and one of the things that we we are in an intensive education campaign of our members working side by side with the NYPD regarding the bike theft, and then the education component about wear a helmet, right? We need to be respectful of the traffic signals, right? And I think it is a process for them. And as we change, right? When they were in the pandemic, none of us were on the street, right? So the ability to speed and to maneuver a lot of orders and make sure on time was easy. As the pandemic finished, and I think all of us want to be outside, there's a lot of people that they didn't encounter. So we have more traffic, more people that are using their bikes on a regular, just for leisure, right? And I think the challenge is how do us kind of like we kind of like commute in the same city, already small and tight. And I think this is a process. First step is doing this, right? And we appreciate that you have bring us here, ask us the question, and be able to. I think we need to have more of these across every neighborhood to create conscience. And the same, we are here compromised to come to you every month or every couple of months and see, hey, how things are going, how things are not going. We're going to be in your neighborhood educating our workers. That's something that we already started yesterday. And we're going to start doing more and more. And we want to partner with the precincts and you guys in the community to hold these kinds of events. That's what we're looking for.
Thank you. Idali, let me just say this. Joanna, we do have a really lovely resolution proposed that was sent out earlier today that you might want to take a look at.
I read it. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, so but the thing here, and I want to stress this, with this committee, there is an issue, obviously, that we have to deal with the transportation committee. Unfortunately, that is not this committee. This committee, we are specifically dealing with the relationship, the partnership between the delivery workers and the restaurants, because we are the Business and Consumer Issues Committee. And I think we'll be seeing a lot of you in transportation and other committees, which will be a joy.
Yeah, but Linda, I don't think you can separate them, because since it is part of the business model, I think that's the reason why we're going to have a conversation with transportation, because they're all interconnected. It's really
they are connected, and they will be. But in this case, this is not our purview, so we're going to stick to our purview.
Aren't the app companies part of your purview?
Hold on a second, Ken. We'll get to you still. Roberta?
Back and forth. Okay.
Thank you. I first of all, I want to thank Christian and Linda for having set up several meetings over the last couple of months to really look into this issue. I want to thank Andrew Ridgey for his thoughtful help, and I want to thank the outside groups that have come in. I'm going to mess up your name, so but you know who I mean. So thank you for coming. It's such an important issue, and first of all, these workers are not well protected by the companies they're working for. They should not be gig workers. They should have more protections. And a big concern is there needs to be public toilets in the city, not just for workers, but also for normal people that, you know, you're walking down the street and suddenly you need to use a facility and there's no facility. So I think, you know, that I haven't seen the resolution because I'm not part of the committee, but I think that should certainly be part of anything we do. I know we've asked for that in the past. We've asked for public toilets. And I think we've got to protect, these are essential workers. I have not used an app. I have not used, I've not had delivery during this period, but I know plenty of people who would not have survived their 15, 16 months in the pandemic without deliveries from drugs, from food, from restaurants, from grocery stores. And these people are putting their lives on the line for those of us who were capable of staying at home. So I just want to thank everybody for this.
Thank you, Roberta. I'd like to hear now from Lisa Orman.
Hi, everyone. Lisa Orman from Streetopia Upper West Side. I wanted to say that I agree with you, Arana. I think they are connected issues, and I hope that we can discuss them in a connected way. I'd first like to acknowledge Ken for bringing this issue to this committee and caring about this issue and the Deliveristas' basic needs, for being there yesterday at the press conference as well. At the city council hearing yesterday, the chair, Ayala, started by saying that we need to get beyond the rhetoric of calling delivery workers essential workers and start actually treating them as such. And I think this is a step in that direction. I really look forward to more conversations on the apps and totally agree with Rich that we need to hold them accountable. As we learned yesterday, many deliveristas are undocumented and struggled to get PPE and government support and basic services, yet they still worked 6 or 7 days a week for 12 hours at a time, delivering food to our neighborhood and homebound people. And many deliveristas testified yesterday that not having access to the bathrooms was a real problem for them, especially the women. And I just want to point out that there are female deliveristas. And the Upper West Side is one of their biggest markets. And I think that we have a real opportunity to lead on something on the Upper West Side. So thanks for discussing this issue, and I fully support the resolution.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, Ken?
Yeah, I agree with Arana and Lisa that the app companies, which the restaurants contract with and which deliver for them, are under the purview, should be under the purview of this committee.
We met with them last month.
Yes, but we're continuing a discussion about their practices. And so I wanted to follow up with Hitaline and ask her, Carlos just testified that he is under a lot of financial pressure to break the law, essentially, to make any money. So what is your organization's response to those financial pressures to break the law?
Well, this is why kind of like what we want to put forward this legislation. So we can, if we can start by limiting the mileage, I think we will alleviate some of the situation, right? And also this is why kind of like, as I said, this is just 6 legislation that will set a basic or minimum standard how things are. And I think that is the way that we see this. And these companies, apps have to be regulated, have to kind of like understand how that New York City or San Francisco or like other areas are not the same. So they have to be through the guidance of the reality of the customers, of the pedestrians, on the people that work. But it can be done, right? Like this is apps that they can change. For example, one thing that I will say, part of the things that we're looking into legislation is because all of us here are very fortunate that we go to work and you know the terms and conditions of your workplace. And you know it's gonna be steady, right? This app changes their workplace conditions every minute. Today, for example, the app will be uploaded, you get an update, and these workers are working on the new terms and conditions, and never is clear what is that terms and conditions are. So I think that legislation is the way to go, and what you guys are putting forward is the way to go.
Thank you. Okay, so Doug?
I'm really glad that we are having this meeting, and I do agree that some issues are going to be more transportation oriented. So we probably would want to have some other joint meetings in the future. Some may be predominantly transportation oriented and some may be mostly BCI oriented. And I look forward to hearing about the other issues. I'm really glad that we have this resolution today to at least address one issue. And it sounds like there are many, many others. And I look forward to hearing about how we can help to advocate. And it sounds like we need to parse through some of the various challenges, and perhaps there will be some other resolutions in the future. I mean, I'm sure of it.
Thank you. Linda?
Yeah, hi. I do want to add this point. We did try to meet with the app companies last month because we thought we would meet with the restaurants and the app companies and find out what the heck they were doing that they weren't allowing access to restrooms. It's inhumane. And only one showed up, DoorDash, as Rich can attest to. And they insisted that they handed out lists and everything, and yet there were no lists. I don't know how to address, many of these are public companies. I don't know how we address this. I think right now the legislation that's being proffered is very important. And what we have done with BCI is taken a lot of language that Ken Coughlin had offered initially, and also supporting the legislation. So I think maybe at a certain point we might want to take a look at the resolution and bring it up, and then we can start discussing that. What do you think about that, Christian?
Okay, so that's the next step now. So I'm sharing on the screen now the resolution that we have. Why don't you guys take a couple minutes for the non-committee members that have not seen this? Take a few minutes to read it. Let me. I'm going to also copy the contents of it and put them on the chat, so that.
And we are very appreciative of Ken's work and his initially addressing this, because it is so important and it's something you don't think about, and yet it's so obvious it's in front of us. So thank you.
Give me a second here, hold on.
Okay.
Give me a second. No, hold on a second. I'm copying the contents of the resolution into the chat. Okay. And I'm going to share it again on the screen. So, so we're going to have discussion now on the resolution. Anybody, while some of us digest the text, anybody's ready to make any comments? Committee members.
Christian, if I just reiterate my concern and the request that the legislation that may include this, but that there has to be a uniform standard that each of the apps has to incorporate into their services. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Let me say that I do support the resolution that all the different bills that went to City Council. It is very true that, just to reiterate, that the delivery app companies are basically the ones reaping the profits here. And,
yes.
And every point that Idalin talked about, they need to address.
Yes.
They are addressing several of those already in legislation.
Yes.
But they do have to definitely come up with a per delivery fee for the people that are doing the deliveries.
Yes.
It's essential. The bathroom access obviously is essential, and we really wish that the city we had done more, but they haven't. In terms of a public investment for assets for everyone, but the city hasn't done that. The point about the one of the bills addresses the issue with the tips.
Yes.
The companies do. I know from before, many of these companies were not passing the tip, or I mean, the full tip, or even the full tip to the delivery person, and that has to change. So it has to be done through legislation.
Yes.
So that the tips will always go to the delivery person, not the company.
Right.
Because I would bet that most customers feel that or think that the tip is going to the delivery person, and not know that.
Right.
The issue with the routes, is also very important. The fact that how far do you have to go for the delivery?
Right.
And there has to, as Hidalin said, there has to be a mechanism. Whereas if it is too far, the delivery person to pass on that particular delivery without any repercussions, or any penalties, because these apps, as Hidalin was pointing out, it's like with Uber, when everybody is grading the driver. The customers were being graded, the drivers were being graded. So the delivery personnel are being graded, and the rating system is just not fair the way it is now, and the only way we can address that is the city has to pass legislation on that. The same way they passed legislation at the beginning of the pandemic of capping the fees that the companies could charge the restaurants, they have to pass legislation to protect the workers also. So I'm going to take comments now on the resolution. Ken, go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, I wish you had shared this with me earlier. I'm looking at this final version for the first time right now, considering the last time we talked about this, I had a resolution that was tabled, and that was what was on the table, and I wasn't accorded the courtesy of seeing what was replacing it.
You have my apologies,
Okay.
Ken. It slipped my mind. I do apologize. You're
Okay.
right. I should have done it.
I have two substantive comments. One is the last bullet, City Council Intro 2298 suggests. I don't think we can characterize it as suggesting. I think it mandates and imposes fines if there's failure to comply. So I think we need to change the wording.
So you're suggesting mandate instead of suggest?
Yes, requires. Require sounds a little less draconian.
I don't have any problem with that myself. Linda? Okay. So that would be
requires that. Requires that restaurants provide. And then my point that I made earlier, that apparently some workers are being charged for access. So they're being given access, but they're having to pay for it. I don't know whether this bill actually encompasses that, takes account of that possibility, but we might want to do that in our resolution, just confirm that we're not talking about people getting access by paying a fee.
The bill,
we could put in free. We could put in at no charge.
At no charge.
At no charge, right? Yes. Okay. The city council bill doesn't address it explicitly. You will think it is implied in the resolution, but I think it's a good idea to put it clearly there.
Yeah, the legislation requires it, so I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So we can make those changes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
You have my vote.
Okay. So Doc?
I agree with everything that was just said and the friendly amendments. I'd actually be really curious to know if Ms. Hernandez has any suggestions or concerns about it, and because she's representing quite a number of people that are going to be hopefully positively impacted by this.
I think you
Italy?
Yeah,
Italy, there
just-
you are. Yeah. Go ahead.
There you go. Sorry, I was just trying to read it on the screen.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna put it back up. Just,
No, it's fine. No problem. No problem. I know there's another part in the chat. I think it's comprehensive. I think if we can emphasize a broader issue of delivery workers across the board, thinking that getting ahead of the game, right? That these apps, as I mentioned, they're getting into a bigger market that is not only food anymore, medications. They will be delivering alcohol. They will be delivering other things. And for example, that's one of the issues that we're trying to address in the legislation, because if you deliver medicine, right, we don't want the apps. Well, this rules doesn't apply to you, right? Because you're not delivering food. So if we keep it broad, that I think that will cover everybody on that front.
We actually, the initial, just to know, FYI, the initial resolution included everyone because you've got fresh direct workers and you've got Amazon Fresh and you've got a lot of different, and truck delivery workers, but we thought we were spreading it out too much. And also we were specifically, this addresses the restaurants, so that wouldn't be germane to the restaurants. I think that is a good point because I do believe, you know, I mean, I've spoken to a lot of delivery people, truck delivery people, and they figured out other issues. It's I think right now what we were trying to do is focus on specifically on the restaurant delivery workers. If that's okay.
That's okay.
This is something this committee or transportation or both may take up later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry, in reading, and just because it was my question, in reading
Yeah, go
the
ahead.
legislation that was just posted, and I just quick link it does this is very specific to food restaurant delivery workers,
Right.
but I agree it should be expanded.
Yeah.
Okay, so Richard.
You know, I just wanted to make one general comment, which I said last night at transportation, and I don't know that it fits into this resolution or if it's something that needs to be addressed in the future. But the app has many problems. One of them was there was no way to contact the customer. And for each of the 3 deliveries, it told me just to leave the package at the front door, take a photo and just leave it. And I actually stayed to make sure that the customer came out and got their package. The first customer was really pissed off at me. She had a way to call me, and she called me and gave me an earful for not bringing the food to her. But I didn't know anything other than her first name, and her building didn't have any names on the buzzers. So I had to just stand there and wait. And the second building, after having that experience with the second building, again, they didn't have names on the buzzers, but it only had 15 buzzers. So I rang every single one of the buzzers, which I despise when delivery people do it in our building, just to be able to get to the customer and make sure that she knew that her food was there. So that's something that impacts tips because the customers were pissed off at me, and it impacts just the ability to do the job. So that's just one of many things that needs to be fixed about the third-party delivery apps.
Yeah, I think that's something we're gonna have to have a further meeting so that we can discuss all those different issues and come with a more comprehensive resolution on that. You know, between BCI and transportation.
I think one of the problems is if we combine too many issues, we'll be less effective. The idea is to go for the most important issue right now, with the most immediate, and then that we'll be able to take the transportation issues, we'll be able to take the app issues. Those are all different legislative issues. But
yeah, I agree with that.
Terrible, Rich.
I agree with that. I had raised my hand a while ago before the resolution was being addressed, and I also think we need a joint committee meeting with transportation and BCI just to address a lot of these issues.
Yeah,
I think that one that I just brought up is a BCI issue, but I agree it's not for tonight. And I definitely do support this resolution.
Thank you. Okay, Rana?
Thank you. 2 observations. Well, one is really a question. Do we care whether or not a restaurant only has like 1 stall?
No.
Josh says no. Okay, I'm going to defer to Josh. Josh is like,
yeah, exactly, no. Yeah,
he's like vigorously shaking his head. Okay. And so the next question I have is about like, where do they put their bikes while they're in the restroom? Like, what happens? So can we ask Hilda Lynn what happens in those cases? Because we know that their bicycles, particularly the motorized ones, have been stolen from them. So when they go into the restaurant to use the restroom, do we just make sure that in another resolution, maybe in transportation, we try to get more bike racks outside of restaurants so that they can chain them up so that they don't lose their bicycles when they have to relieve themselves or wash their hands? Just a thought.
Well, that's something to think about. Hey, Darlene, do you have any comment on that?
So the workers will leave their bicycles outside the restaurants, right? And I think that's something in the future, as this is an industry, I think with the city, we definitely need to have more bike rides for people to actually put their bikes in a secure fashion, right? As so many you can see, probably they try to leave it in front of the buildings. Some of there's no way to kind of like tie the bike. So sometimes that's one of the issues that we have. But I would say bike theft, it's happening even if they're actually tied. We have videos of people that are just kind of like break it, or because we're talking about a tool that costs between $1,500 to $3,000. So like the bikes that they have, they're extremely costly. So if they lose their bike, it's losing their livelihoods for them when they bike get stolen. And we're trying to, at the end, we need to care about these issues because they sometimes see it as, oh, it's just a bike, right? But for them, it's their livelihood.
Okay, Roberta?
We've got to start educating people about humanity, because these workers are treated as though they're a different class of people, like they don't exist. My building it lets anybody that wants to use the bathroom, if they're UPS, if they're FedEx, if they're bringing something from the pharmacy, whatever. We have some restrooms in the basement. It's a big building. We let them use the building. We have cameras. We can watch. We can make sure they're only where they're supposed to be. But we've lost a sense of humanity from these people, for so many people in our community that are essential to our well-being, and it's just upsetting to me.
Thank you, Roberta. Peter, were you trying to make a comment?
Me? Yes. I was hoping to just remind the committee that in the past, the black car operators had to come before this committee to assure that they had break rooms and bathrooms available for their drivers. I don't know if that law still exists, but that was the way that black cars operators had to function for many, many years. And it was an annual review for many of these operators. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter.
I will have to say, in regards to that, that's also my area where these operators have offices, right? They have locations.
It actually went from transportation.
Right, exactly, yeah. But it's a fair point. These app companies operate over the place, and they need to be held more accountable, and maybe they should be contributing to facilitate these things. Madeline, unmute yourself first.
I was just wondering, and I don't mean to be offensive to anyone, but are the restaurants, does anybody know are the restaurants are more concerned about them coming in the bathrooms, not sanitizing themselves properly and then contaminating the food that they deliver? But like Rich said, some you just leave at the door, but are the restaurants concerned? Is that one of their concerns, whether or not they will be sanitized enough to deliver their food? Does anyone know?
Peter and Andrew, do you have any insights on that? No? Okay.
I can speak to that. So they just use the restroom. They need to relieve themselves. So you know when the restaurant gives the worker the food, right? The food is sealed. The worker cannot touch it, cannot open it, cannot do anything. It just have to be delivered to the customer. So in that regards, that's the procedure that they have, right? And I want to add something that for people that I know Rich mentioned, when you guys don't receive the total food, the frustration is going to go to the delivery worker. But the reality is that somebody was missing something on your order, that is a restaurant issue, but the worker gets the brunt of it, right? And then you base your tip about what happened, but the contact should be the restaurant. That's something that I think is part of the education process, and that we look forward to work with Rich on that forward.
And one thing here is there's really no relationship between the rider and the restaurant, at least in my experience, because you just do a delivery that the app tells you. And, in my hour and a half, I got 3 different deliveries at 3 different restaurants. So I don't know that the restaurants really think about it, because they're just cooking up the food, and then someone comes in from the app, picks up the food and leaves. So there's just not really a relationship there, which is the problem, that there's not a relationship with the deliverer and anyone, because the app is taking that away.
Thank you, Rich. Kristen, I think we've got Andrew Ridgey has his hand up.
I would just add on to that point. One of the challenges on the restaurant side, which complicates this even further, is some of the third-party apps add restaurants to their websites without the restaurant's permission. And they basically scrape old menus. So some restaurants that don't have agreement with the third-party apps but are listed on their sites, you can go on there and the third-party app basically puts an outdated menu on their website. So people may be ordering food that's no longer offered by the restaurant, or the prices are outdated. So the third-party delivery worker will sometimes then go there and place the order, and the restaurant's like, well, we don't even have that anymore. And it creates all this frustration between, the customer doesn't know who to be mad at, the restaurant, the delivery worker. Meanwhile, it was the app's fault. So it just puts everyone in this extraordinarily horrible position unnecessarily.
Thank you.
Okay.
Josh.
I just
Josh, before you go.
Yeah.
Ken brought to my attention that the resolution didn't
Ken's
make
already
it.
spoken. Let's hear from Josh.
No, hold on. He made up to my attention that the resolution didn't make it into the chat fully. It took me 3 separate chat segments to put the full resolution on the chat just now. Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to echo what Andrew said, because we actually had that happen at many of our restaurants / bars where we were put on by third-party apps, and there was the wrong menu, wrong pricing, and people showing up, for orders to go, and then we'd have customers call us and say, I ordered this and we didn't serve that item anymore, and it was very frustrating. And unfortunately, not only did we get calls from the customers, but I would imagine that the delivery people equally got the wrath of the customer who was unhappy with their order. And it's really frustrating from the business perspective as well, because when we get phone calls, we don't know anything about it. And so I can't even imagine how much worse it is for the delivery person who's handing this to them and then getting, I would guess, sometimes, chased down by people saying, what did you do with my delivery, or how, all these things. It's very frustrating. The third-party apps there's this, as everybody's been saying, there's a zillion issues that really are all part of this. But just I want to echo what Andrew said, because that has happened. I have personal experience with that. It's definitely not fun.
Thank you, Josh. Linda, you were going to say?
I was going to make another point. Initially, we had a problem with the restrooms. I brought up a situation a couple months ago when the resolution was initially introduced by Ken, and that was the restaurants were still concerned. We didn't have full person in dining. We had 25% in dining, and one of the issues restaurants that I spoke to had they had to take the temperatures, and they had to have contact tracing, and that became an issue, but that is no longer an issue. So it's evolving, but I think, and what Andrew and Josh and Ken have said, and Rich, it's the apps, but that those are public, for the most part, public companies. That is a different type of legislation. I think what we have to do right now is really support the current legislation and make sure it happens.
Okay. Anybody has any other questions? Because I'd like them to collaborate if we don't.
Call the question.
Okay, so
Second.
Committee members first. Committee members, all those in favor of the resolution, raise your hand. So I see 6, minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, myself 7.
With the friendly amendments.
This includes the friendly amendments, yes. So that would be, let me see, am I missing somebody? Okay, so that's 7. Paul, okay, so that's 7 in favor. Anybody against or abstaining? Paul, you're abstaining?
You have to lower people's hands.
Yeah, okay, let me lower people's hands. Sorry, okay. Okay, so first of all, a no vote. Okay, abstaining vote. Paul, you were abstaining then? Or you were voting in favor? You can even write down the chat if you like, Paul. Okay, so I'm gonna take so I'm gonna call that 7000 for now. Non-committee members in favor, raise your hand. Okay, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. Okay. Let me lower. That's 8. Let me lower those hands. Okay. Anybody against? Anybody abstaining? Okay, so that vote passes 8-0-0-0.
I think you have somebody for cause.
Okay. Oh, okay. It's 8001. I couldn't have imagined that that there was a conflict of interest there. Okay, so anybody has any new business to bring to our attention? Okay, so with that, I'm going to thank. Okay, Doc.
I just wanted to mention, and this is something we've talked about, and I just want our committee to be aware, and it's a little early, but it's always better to be early than late. You know, the cannabis legislation has passed in New York State, and we probably, BCI will be tasked with reviewing applications for dispensaries. And it's going to be, you know, something that we're going to have to give a lot of thought to. So it is new. It's probably a little premature, but it's happening, and I think that we should start to think about how to prepare for it. Thanks.
Rich?
Yeah, I have 2 things I just want to mention that are joint transportation, BCI, and probably more transportation, but they definitely tie in with BCI about delivery workers. The first one is, actually the first one's about delivery workers, which is that there are a number of laws on the books already about delivery workers needing license tags, needing reflective vests, and needing helmets. And because these delivery workers are independent contractors of the third-party apps, most of them don't have them, and there's no accountability. And I see that as a big issue. Second issue I want to bring up, obviously everyone knows I'm a big supporter of bike lanes. I'm also a huge supporter of the open dining. And I'm also extremely worried that we basically have vehicle lanes going through restaurants right now. And I've raised this with Howard and Andrew, saying, you know, this needs to be a joint meeting with BCI and transportation. But it's we've had one fatality, which it seems might have been the pedestrian's fault. We're not sure, but every fatality is a horrible tragedy.
Where a
And
car
I'm
is
worried that,
considered the vehicle's fault, period. And
well, regardless of fault,
Story.
I'm really worried that we have bikes going through where
We
people
lost
are
you,
in
Rick.
restaurants. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I'm really concerned
can
that
hear
we
you
have
now.
bikes. We have bike lanes going through what are essentially restaurants, where you have customers who might be drinking coming out of the open dining and might walk into the path of a bicycle. And I'm just worried that it's fatalities waiting to happen. I don't want to lose the bike lanes. I don't want to lose open dining, but we need to think through and really call out the issue as quickly as we can and have a joint meeting to discuss the issue, because otherwise we're looking at trouble.
Rich, will it be possible for you to write a few lines and email them to me and Linda, so that when I request of Howard and Andrew a joint meeting, I have something to present to them?
And before we move on, I just want to, because I know that time is precious.
Yeah, and I apologize.
Okay, I'm just going to say that Irene Colon Hernandez and Lydia Walpa, I want to thank you both for organizing this and coming here and spending time with us. And I know you've probably been out lobbying and doing everything all day and press conferences. I do that for a living too. It's very tough. So kudos to you, and thank you so much for taking the time and spending it with us. And if there's anything else, you can drop us a line and we will be very responsive. Thank you. And it was
I have something to say before you went.
We're not finished yet. Right.
Holy shit.
Darling, thank you. I echo the sentiments of everyone, in thanking you profusely for the services you have provided us. Irana, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you if you could join us at some point at the Transportation Committee meeting, just to talk about some of the issues that were raised here that are more transportation related than business BCI. Hidaline. So hopefully we can reach out to you to have that conversation. I also wanted to piggyback on Richard's suggestion, and maybe Andrew, you could give us some guidance on it. I think that, since the restaurant sheds are permanent, maybe this would be a good time and I don't know if the committee has already taken this up, I'm new to the committee, whether we could talk about the standardization that someone raised earlier, and also coming up with just some recommendations on the sheds. They're all different. If there's a standard, I don't know. There's a big moose on top of one of them, which I think is dangerous. So maybe we could have that conversation in the future.
Andrew?
Yeah, so the open restaurants program is going to be made permanent, but there will be updated requirements. So what you see on the street right now, especially the roadway structures with the roofs and all of that, I'd say it is highly, highly, highly unlikely many of those structures will remain in that form under the permanent program. So those things are under the temporary emergency program, and over the next, I'd say, year and a half, you will see a transition into a new program that would have stricter limitations, probably more standardization than what you see now.
So do we want, as a committee, to make recommendations based on 1 year of piloting, including comments from Rich? Like, should we prepare and sort of be proactive about coming up with a set of guidelines?
So there's going to, so the council, there's going to be bills that are introduced between now and the end of the year that will have to do with many of these different requirements that will provide, public input and public hearings. And then after that legislation is passed, it's likely that the agencies, in this case, Department of Transportation, which will be the agency that takes over the responsibility from Consumer Affairs to permit the outdoor dining and enforce all the different rules. They'll probably have to do rulemaking that would have further requirements proposed, and there would be public hearings on that. So I think there'll be multiple opportunities to comment on what's being proposed. I suppose you could, in advance, make suggestions, but I don't know if it would be a more effective use of our time to wait until the city proposes something and then comment on that versus just being one of many community boards around the city, sending out a lot of different suggestions.
Right.
That's an open conversation. Would be the most constructive way to do it. And
we should probably, at some point, Andrew, we probably at some point should have a discussion about whether we want to be proactive or reactive.
I don't think
that's sort of what I was recommending, Andrew. Like we've lived with them for years, so I think we all have some ideas of how they can be improved.
Exactly.
And why wait to react?
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Well,
we can discuss. I mean, my sense on all of this is like, this is a huge, massive, permanent change in the way that the sidewalks and streets are going to be used, and one community board, we can put something out there. I just don't know if you have more of an impact or more influence commenting and getting more attention commenting on something that's actually happening versus just throwing ideas out there. Like, are they going to say, okay, let's see what community board 7 says for these designs versus us commenting.
And we're not designers.
We could share it with our council members and let them make it part of the legislation, right?
There's also a lot of there's also like a lot of design, like safety issues, like, for example, the roadway seating and having to reinforce it with sand and having the 18 inches. So there's a lot of really technical safety stuff that the city's been working on. So we could say stuff, but we also need the people with expertise to be able to comment on the specific specs. If a car is going 30 miles an hour and crashes into something, what is the impact going to be? That should be going 30 contemplated, in the design of it. So
it should not be going 30 miles per hour in the city. It should be going.
Let me just say,
that's a good point too.
If somebody who works with construction and somebody who works in the industry, or with it, this is not our métier. And let me just say this: what would be nice is to have transportation come back.
Exactly.
They stood us up the first time, but a year ago, a little over a year ago, when they were talking about this, actually, it was June 19th. We had a meeting. 2020. We had a meeting with transportation, with the transportation department, and they had no ideas. They just said it was going to happen, and they had no criteria. They had no guidelines, and then
there's a lot more.
Lorraine is absolutely right.
I don't understand this. I don't understand the conversation. Linda is saying that the sheds are not BCI's jurisdiction, when in fact we've just spent previous meetings discussing the sheds in this committee.
You're asking us about the design of the sheds.
Can I finish my point? I just thought that as a community, we've gotten so much feedback from so many people about the sheds. As a community, why not just make some recommendations to our local council people? We know you're going to have this come before you. Yes, Andrew, there are issues that may be out of our scope, but the ones that could actually help our council members come up with legislation that will address some of the many issues and concerns that have been expressed both by our neighbors and by board members.
Okay, right.
I don't know why it cannot be a proactive conversation like any other item on the agenda, where we then just come up with, it doesn't even have to be a resolution, it could be a letter,
Okay, thank you. Irena, here's the thing. What I would like to do if we really wanted to be proactive and effective, the first thing we would want to do is get Transportation Committee over here because they are now in charge of the sheds.
Well, I'm on that committee, so I will have that conversation
It's not the Department of Transportation.
But it should be joined.
I will have that
That's the
conversation
way
with the
you're
Commissioner
right.
of Transportation. I have a relationship. I will reach out to DOT.
That would
I'm
be
on the committee also, and I agree
So
with
wait,
Irene.
can I make a suggestion? So so the process is advancing, right? So city planning and DOT, they have a process. So there's actually a very good presentation that they now have since the last time they came to the meeting. And I don't think that person was the appropriate person. Some of the questions I think were being asked were out of their realm and their expertise. So what I would suggest is asking DOT and city planning to come and give the presentation on the future of open restaurants and outdoor dining. So everyone has their expectations set. So everyone has their expectations set on what the future of the program is going to look like, what the timeline is going to look like, and what we as a community should have for expectations.
That's a great idea.
I think that would be really helpful to frame it for everyone, because, for example, in June, the goal is that the council is going to introduce a text amendment. The way that we expand outdoor dining is to remove outdoor dining from the zoning resolution, which wasn't always part of it, but it was added in a whole bunch of years ago. So the first part is to remove outdoor dining from the zoning resolution so restaurants can get it in additional areas. Then that will set up the additional legislative and rulemaking process to design the program. And you have the sidewalks, you have the roadway seating. So I think if that would be a great first presentation, and then maybe we have a joint committee meeting to discuss some of more of the finer points, like you were discussing about what are they going to look like, what are some best practices, what would we like to see in our community, how's it going to impact with bike lanes, just so our comments can be a little bit more informed based on the direction the city is moving. Versus
then we're not finding in a vacuum. And we've got some information. So I think that we should think about that for the July. Do you think we could get for our July meeting? That would be a great meeting.
Yeah, we would plan on that. What Andrew said, basically it's just more effective for us to wait until there's something for us to talk about. And there's no one stopping anyone from sending suggestions to the council people right now.
Yeah.
Anybody can send them ideas. But
you can't say Community Board 7 feels that way unless we voted on it.
They don't tend to, I know, but they don't tend to listen until they have hearings. So I prefer to wait until we have something to talk about, that we have something that they present. And then we can, as Andrew said, we will invite DOT, we'll invite DCP to do a presentation, and then we'll have something to talk about. Doc, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I just want to say, and just echoing a lot that Andrew said, I don't know if anyone attended some of the city planning trainings that we had that were made available to community board members. And one of them was about what will be the permanent outdoor dining program, and as it relates to the zoning changes. And then also the change in the business, the PCE, the physical culture establishment, that's also changing. So, and then a lot of the committee members know this already, but I think it was already mentioned that DCA, which is no longer DCA, is getting out of the outdoor dining business. It's going to be It's going to be DOT, and what was DCA is now called DCP, I believe.
Right, DCP, but they're not doing this anymore.
So forward thinking here, typically BCI reviewed the liquor license applications and outdoor seats. Now that DOT is going to be managing that program, what we should be thinking about when it ultimately is formulated is how, when we are probably reviewing outdoor dining, will it be the Transportation Committee, will it be BCI, or will we have a kind of a joint meeting? It's something to think about.
I think what just listening to what Irena said and Andrew said, I think we're talking about a joint meeting, because there are big issues, not only in terms of the construction and design, but also in terms of safety.
Well,
a lot of issues.
Yes,
I'll call Howard.
in reviewing the overall hearings that are going to be coming up
Yeah.
for the permanent, obviously Andrew knows a lot about this, and I'm sure he'll be attending all of them. But just when it is a permanent program, on the application process, how are we going to handle that? Andrew, do you believe that the program and the hearings are going to be prior to when the new electeds take their office, or will
I
be?
think the goal is for the final program to be completely finalized before the end of the year. So before the next mayor and the next city council.
Right.
But then there would be a transition period from the temporary program into the permanent program, because say you had 8,000 applicants, there's no way DOT could process 8,000 applications immediately. There's no way community boards could have 8,000 hearings immediately. So there needs to be a runway from the temporary program transitioning into a permanent program. So that could take, I don't know, a year or so to happen.
Is it not going to be self-certified going forward?
Can I suggest that we also include Richard Ashe and landmarks in this conversation? I'm not landmarks, land use.
Land use? But no, I think if we wanted to really make it, let's consider it. Okay, how's that, Irena? But if we wanted to make it kind of nimble and get things going, I think land use is a different purview, but we will just happy to discuss it with them. I'm certainly going to reach out to Howard Yaras and
Based on Andrew's description, it sounds like city planning is involved and changes are going to be made that would fall under land use, but I'll leave that to you, Linda.
Okay.
Not necessarily, actually, but yeah, but we'll talk more about it.
Certainly,
Okay.
we'll reach out to. I'm happy to reach out to Richard and get his feedback. What we're trying to do is be effective, and sometimes being effective is really kind of knowing where we can move things. But I think the first thing we do next month is probably, and Stephen, of course, we're going to confer with you. I think it's a great idea to have a joint transportation BCI meeting and invite and really insist somebody from DOT and city planning come, so that we can really find out what's going on. So.
I just add, it looks like there's a lot of, it seems like we have an end game here. There's a lot of paths to going about it. There's really some good ideas. There's different ways to go about it. And we should just have a discussion in the next coming weeks to figure out what's the next path. But I'm very confident that we'll work together to do so. I'll make a comment that there was a lot of comments that this wouldn't happen. And people wanted to have it done when they wanted to have it done. And sometimes people have different ideas. But I think the main thing is we got this done. And I think we'll do that as well. And we'll listen to everyone's voices, and we'll come up with a consensus voice, because I think that's what we've done now at the community board, is try to build much more of a consensus.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to bring the meeting to a close now.
This was an amazing meeting, guys.
And I thank you, everyone that participated today. Thank you for coming. It was a very good meeting, and we'll see you next time.
We got
Nice.
So long.